Welcome to the EmpowerHer Wellness podcast. I'm Morgan, and I'm thrilled to be your host and wellness coach as we navigate the path to a healthier, more confident you. As the owner of Get Fit With Me, I bring years of experience in personal training, nutrition, and coaching to each episode. Join me as we explore practical tips and strategies for fitness, nutrition, mindset, and more, all tailored for busy women just like you. Let's empower your wellness journey and achieve lasting transformation together. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the EmpowerHer Wellness podcast. I'm your host and coach, Morgan Ekovich. And today we are back for a fun topic about managing stress, mental clutter, and that burnout. And I know we all go through stages, or maybe some of you feel this way all of the time where you're burned out, exhausted, too many decisions, and that stress level is constantly high and that brain does not shut off. So, knowing that a lot of us feel that way, maybe it's a time of the year or all of the time, I've brought in an expert today. And we have Regina Carey with us. And I'm really excited. I have joined a lot of networking groups here in Lansing, and it's connected me with some amazing women in the business world and in the health world. So, Regina, do you mind sharing a little bit about why you've gotten into your passion of being an impact coach and a passion investigator?
Yes, it's passion instigator because I start fires in the bellies of women. And you know what? Can you think about your mom or your grandmother or your aunt? And if there's one thing that you remember as a kiddo where you looked at your mom and you're like, oh, I wish you have a wish for her or you wish she'd stop doing something. For me, my mother was always trying to lose weight. She was always, if I'd go in her bedroom, she was on the floor doing leg kicks, or she was trying on clothes and making faces in the mirror because she didn't like the way she looked. Do you have something that you remember that your mom did?
I do. It's funny. So, Mom, I know you're going to be listening to this. I do remember we always had weights and aerobics balls like around that us kids, we just throw around and play. And I remember that as being, I always remember exercise being involved in a way. And that it's funny you say that because I didn't really put that together based on the industry that I'm in now.
Well, and that is the impressions that we get from a very young age are that we got to keep trying to make ourselves better, to make ourselves thinner, to maybe make ourselves more polite in order to fit in. And I remember thinking, looking at all the women in my life, even as a child, and recognizing the high anxiety, the less than, were very submissive. So I'm a 60s, 70s kid, and I was always surrounded by women who were taking care of men.
Mm.
And I knew how smart all of them were. From being one of my aunts was the mayor of her city at one point, but that was later. It's like they have this in them. And I never understood why until when I was in the 8th grade. I sat with a guidance counselor, and the guidance counselor said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" I was 12, Morgan. And I said, "I want to be a physical therapist." And he looked down at my folder, which presumably had my grades in it, and he said, "I don't think that you've got the grades in science or math to do that. So, do you have a plan B?" I mean, he cut me off right there.
Mm.
And I said, "Well, I'm teaching." I remember shrugging because I always liked helping kids. And he said, "Okay, that sounds good." So he put me in the low level physical science, the introductory math, and off I went into my high school career, and it was all laid out and nobody questioned it. And
Mm.
so as I've evolved as an educator, I question everything. And I encourage women to do the same. Look at your life, look at your career, look at how you're parenting, look at what people are telling you and question it. Is it true? Do you really need it? Do you have to do all the things? So, as a result of many moves through my husband's career, I've had this great opportunity to recreate what I do wherever we went. And I've always been connected with universities. I don't know about you, but I love being around people who are researching. I want other people to do the research and then just tell it to me because
Yes.
I don't have that kind of brain. But I love being in the midst of learning because I very much have a growth mindset. And I'm certain many of your listeners do because they're here growing, evolving, wanting to be a better human, which I am 100% for. We absolutely strive to be better every day. I think that's important.
Hmm.
But drastically changing ourselves, denying ourselves, being hard on ourselves, this is the kind of thing that I am working to put a stop to. Because ultimately, my big, hairy, audacious goal is to knock heart disease out as the #1 killer of women. And I think a
Love that.
lot of that comes from what we're saying to ourselves. And that's what I'm doing, one woman at a time.
I love it. And let's talk about what we say to ourselves. What types of things do you hear people say to themselves? And how do you help them reframe or start to acknowledge some of these things? Because I think we get in the habit, and I physically will sometimes, like, if I notice myself picking myself away in the mirror, I'll like sometimes hold up my hand and say, stop. Like, why are you doing this? But we all have different points in our life when we start to realize these things, or we want to start becoming aware of these things.
Right.
So, how do you help your people, or just people and women in general, notice the self talk and when it's more negative, and then how to reframe that?
Well, all my friends know this. So people who are around me the most know that I'm going to catch them in the act. My husband is a veterinarian, and I learned early that if our dogs misbehaved, we had to catch them right there and say no, and catch them in the act. Because if you come home and it's been 30 minutes and they peed on the carpet or it doesn't matter. You do not discipline them at that point. This is not about discipline. It's about awareness. So I catch women all the time, and I know this is over talked about, but it happens
Mhm,
all the time. Women are apologizing,
mhm,
apologizing like they breathe. And what I want people to recognize is, are you apologizing for taking up space? That's the
mhm,
first thing I want you to be aware of. And if that's the only thing that you're aware of right now, terrific. Are you apologizing for taking up space? When do we do it? When we're turning the corner at the grocery store and we run in, we have a cart. There's going to be other people in the aisle, but we apologize. Oh, I'm sorry. And when you are an apologizer, it becomes a habit.
mhm,
It fills empty space in conversation. I've seen women apologize when other people drop something. Catch yourself. So, this is one easy way. A second way is to enlist the help of a friend, a kiddo, a
mhm.
partner, a spouse, and ask, what is it that you hear me say often? And they might say, well, you say that you're stupid a lot. Like, I'm so stupid. Okay, well, anytime you hear me say that, let's have a plan. Let's do a system. You know what's crazy is a marble jar really works. You have marbles in a bowl and an empty mason jar. And if somebody hears you say it, you put a marble in the jar. And when the marble gets to the marble line, you draw a line, marker on it. When it gets to a certain level, then you have to either pay a fine or you have to do the most unpleasant task in the household, like maybe pick up poop in the yard or whatever it is. But this is one way because not only is it visual, it's auditory. You hear that clink and you begin to see. just how much you're saying that. Because I'm telling you what, when you speak unkindly about yourself or make faces, your kids are watching. Your daughters are watching, and they are going to imitate your modeling. And this is really where we can start to break patterns. So catch yourself. And if you can think of nothing nice to say, then you flip it and say something that you're grateful for.
Mm.
I have 15 minutes to do whatever I want. I know many moms live their lives in these 30-minute blocks. I used to get so frustrated with that because you can't do much in that 30. What do you do?
No.
But another thing that I hear women say a lot is, I never have enough time. There's no time. This is one phrase we can catch ourselves in and start to say, I have plenty of time. I have plenty of time. And you begin to look at your schedule and say, okay, I have 15 minutes. I'm going to go outside, walk for 5 down the sidewalk, turn around and walk back. Then I'm going to go to the bathroom and then go pick up the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And I love that you brought in ask the kids what you say. So I'm a nanny and she is 8 and he is 11. And I'm curious. I'm going to actually ask them when I see them next, just because we don't realize what we say. And sometimes our partners or our friends are kind of, I'm going to use the word numb to it. They're kind of used to it, but kids are so learning. They're learning and they're hearing us all the time. So I really like that. And I saw you just wrote something on your board. So for those of you who are just listening, remember this is a video podcast as well. And we put this on YouTube. So go to the Get Fit With Me YouTube channel and you'll be able to watch what she's putting on the board. I know she's got some diagrams today. I know she will be really awesome about describing them as best as she can. But if you are that visual learner, go tune into the video portion of this as well. So you just wrote enlist help and
Yeah.
on your board. And that's one of the first things we can do is enlist help. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes. So a partner, a buddy, a friend, a coworker, because if you're in the office, I know you're saying things to yourself and your office mates hear that as well. But I'm telling you, if you've got kids, kids are the best. They hear it all and they will tell you. Because we're alone in our heads, we're telling ourselves this stuff all day long. But if it's leaking out, that's the thing you got to focus on.
So you also were talking about we live in 30-minute blocks and I am type A, calendar driven, like task oriented. And I just helped with run around of kids in the afternoon. So I start to get a better understanding of all of the demands that it comes when you have multiple pieces moving.
Yes.
And you may have that mom who's really high achieving, or you may just have that woman who's very high achieving in her job, who is like, I cannot get up to take breaks. My job is the most important thing. Myself is last. So when we talk about helping those high achieving women slow down,
Mm.
instead of just keep ramping it up all the time, how do you help them work through slowing down, taking a pause, and helping them understand that that breath and that pause will help them be better instead of detrimental?
We're very visual beings. We need cues. And I keep those things in front of me all the time. Those reminders to breathe, to slow down, to stop, to smile. And all of those things take time. I just spoke with a woman who does everything in the home for her children. And she just told me that she's in a medical crisis. And she said, I always thought I was going to be the healthy parent. And now she's having to stop because her body said, we're not doing this anymore. We've got to listen to our bodies for one. So this is the biggest repeat. This is on my loop of repeats. And that is the body never lies. And I will write that up on the board. But I'm telling you, when we feel it, whether it's often when I talk to women, the stress they feel is in their chest,
Mhm.
huge alarm, red flag, or they have gut issues and neck and shoulder tension because of all the computer work and the phones. So here's the thing. Instead of medicating it, caffeinating
Mhm.
yourself, drinking wine, let's stop and listen to what your body is telling you. Stop, walk away from the computer, get into nature. Nature is so healing. And, I was at the brink in 2019 after my husband had cancer, my daughter was in active addiction, and I was running the household, but it felt like all things were falling apart. And I ran away. I went to Spain and I walked the Camino de Santiago for 12 days and got into my body and had to feel it. But it was like, if I didn't do that, I knew something terrible was going to happen to me. I had to get away and into nature and to breathe and to be by myself. And I know that there are women listening who fantasize about getting into a minor accident, just enough to put them into the hospital to be taken care of. And I know
Mhm.
some women laugh at this. This is true. I'm telling you.
Mhm.
Many of my clients have told me this. I just want something to take me out of the house, put me into a hospital bed, and I'm going to be served my meals. I'm going to be checked on. I'm going to be comfortable. My feet are going to be up, and I don't have to think about anything. And we want to prevent any of us getting to that point. And so you can listen to every podcast, Instagram reel, TikTok, whatever you're listening to, you can hear it again and again and again and again. But until you decide, I am going to do this for me, I am going to start out my day with 30 minutes, no phone, no computer, no distractions. And if that means waking up a little earlier, then you're going to do it. And you
Mhm.
begin to see what it's like when you give yourself pause in the morning. And instead of going directly to other people's lives, we pick up the phones first thing and we start paying attention to everybody else. We do that all day. Why would we start our day with that? So listen to your body is the first most important message. And then open up your day with some peace. That's a great way to start.
So you mentioned the nature, and I'm going to kind of go back to that. So a girlfriend and I were just having this conversation about how we used to be hunter and gatherers, and now we live in a world where we could literally not leave the house if we had all the means possible. Your doctor could come to you, your physical therapy could come to your grocery. There would be no reason to leave. But there are so many benefits to nature. So the fact that you were able to listen to your body and step away and go do the trail. I've heard a lot of people do it and I heard it's amazing and that it's a bucket list. Go do the vino on the Camino. But for somebody who doesn't have that step, they're like, I'm feeling those thoughts of, I need a minor accident. I need something externally to slow me down. I'm burned out. I'm at my wits' end. I can tell I'm emotionally and physically drained with everybody around me. I don't like who I am with people, but they can't step away for that long a period because that stress of that and that tension in that chest that comes in of, it's all going to fall apart if I leave. Where does
Right.
somebody try to find, and yes, those 30 minutes, but what types of suggestions do you give for people to get out in nature? Because I really do think that's one of the most powerful things of those 5 minutes, those 30 minutes. So how do you recommend people get outside in nature more in a way that is not, you have to do this, it's homework, more of like, remember
Mhm.
the benefits you get from being out there because they help this, this, and this.
Atomic Habits. Okay. I know some
Great book.
people have read it, listened to it. I'm going through it a second time now. We've got to make things easy. Just as easy as it is to hop on Amazon and order something, we have to make it easy. Now, many women refuse to ask for help because their go-to excuse is, well, they're too busy. I can't ask that mom. She's too busy. Okay, I know I have said this in a room of 100 women. Who is too busy to help a friend? No hand goes up.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing is make it easy. Get someone to pick your kids up for a day, or find that 30 minutes and dedicate it to yourself. Like when you drop the kids off, park your car in the parking lot and go on a walk. I used to do that all the time with my kids when I would drop them off. I have a friend, we would meet in the parking lot and we'd walk for 30, 45 minutes. Atomic habits, it's almost like he talks about habit stacking. So
Mm-hmm.
if you can do it with something that is consistent in your life, whether it's going to the grocery store, maybe go to the library every day, I don't know, whatever you do, hook on a little bit of walking with that. Another technique is to get the tools. So make it attractive. Like get some fun hiking shoes, get hiking poles.
Mm.
You can get a couple hiking poles for less than $20. And
Right.
there's just something so awesome about going to your local, park, nature, and having those poles. It helps you feel strong. It gives you your posture. And it's a tool to keep you balanced as you're walking. And you don't need it much here in Michigan because we don't have mountains, but it's a fun thing to use. And it's a little motivator, just like when we used to get, our new Lululemon leggings or something that we couldn't wait to wear them to the gym because they felt so great. Make it attractive to yourself so that you want to do the thing. The easiest part, I think the easiest suggestion is to enlist the help of somebody else, whether they're going to watch your kids, pick up your kids, or walk with you. Ask for help and hook it on to something that you already do. There's nothing like forest bathing. It's a different feeling when you're underneath the trees as opposed to out on the sidewalks, just to be
Mm.
outside. When you're in the actual dirt, grass, pine needles, that's a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
You only need to do it for 10 minutes to get the effects.
So let's go back to the enlist help because you mentioned a really good part of okay, well, you need ask somebody. Sometimes the biggest thing for someone to do is to ask for help
Yes.
and to say, I need help. So, what are some strategies that you help women kind of reframe that mindset of it is okay to ask for help? You are not you're not weak, you're not incapable, you're not any of these feelings for asking for help. How do you make them feel empowered by asking for help rather than diminished and small?
Well, a huge piece of research came out from Brene Brown.
Oh,
And I remember, this isn't recent, but I remember hearing it and it was a sucker punch. That's what it felt like when I heard this. She said, if you judge yourself for asking for help, you invariably judge others when they do the same. What? Yes.
mm,
So often, especially when we've got young kids and there's a lot to do, we're saying yes to the play dates, yes to the bake sale, yes to the volunteering, yes, 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 yes. We become a little resentful
hmm
because we're looking left and right and we're keeping tabs on who's doing what and how much they're agreeing to, yada, yada, yada. We can drop this behavior and we can say no to something. And I will tell you this, if people reach out to me, I will send you my list of how to say no.
Ooh.
Yeah, so my contact information, I will send you my no list. Saying no is so powerful. And like with anything, Morgan, when you practice it, when you begin to do it and you see how wonderful it is, you do it more. You get better at it. It's sort of like when you've got your third or fourth kid. By that time, you're like, oh yeah, I got that, I know what I'm doing. I got this down. It's the same thing with asking for help. And you do have to look at your support system. You have to look at your budget. You have to look at your calendar and say, where can I fit this in? If I cannot fit this in, I either need to enlist help by hiring someone and actually paying a sitter to come in,
Mhm.
or work something out with my partner, my spouse. I'm going to give everybody this title of a book that I'm reading right now that I wish I had when I was a young mother. It's called Fair Play. And
Oh, okay.
actually, an attorney who does mediation for divorces told me about this book because it has saved marriages. It's called Fair Play. It's by Eve Rodsky, Rodsky. Fair Play. It is amazing. And in the first 5 minutes, I sent it to 6 people. I only had to hear 5 minutes of it, and I sent it off to half a dozen people because it is so powerful. And it's all about the division of labor on this invisible service, these tasks that we do as mothers, as women, and it's very powerful. So the bottom line is, if you have to hire it done, hire it done.
Mhm.
Because you spending time on you, it's priceless.
It is. And when you spend time on you and you start to say no and less yes, that burnout decreases. You have less mental clutter and you start to feel better. So all of those things build on each other to make us feel more empowered, more confident, more like ourselves because we get so bogged down and we wonder why we don't feel like ourselves because we're not taking that time for ourselves.
There's that cue. That's the listening to the body. When you don't feel like yourself, when you know something is off, that's it. Your body never lies. It's the
Mm.
biggest truth teller. So when you feel off, when you feel imbalance, the way you can always bring yourself back to balance is with your breath and getting into nature. And both of those things
Mhm.
are free. And
Mhm.
those of you who are thinking, well, I don't know, what are they going to think about me if I ask for help? Or what are they going to think of me if I say no? Here's my favorite phrase. You wouldn't worry what other people thought about you if you knew how little they thought about you.
Mm.
I'll say it again. We wouldn't worry about what other people think about us if we knew how little they think about us. We are about us. We
Mhm.
might think about somebody else for a hot minute, but like my dad used to say, it's a fart in the wind. It's gone. It's gone. I know it's one of my favorites.
I love it.
So when you have that feeling, I want you to think of that phrase, fart in the wind. It's gone. They're not thinking about me and what I'm doing. And I'm all I have. I'm all
Mhm.
I have. I've got to take care of myself.
I love that. And I think I got this from Ted Lasso. I don't know if you've watched that show on Apple TV
Yes.
yet, but you got to be a goldfish. Like, move on. We can't overthink things, and we do. I know so many women that overthink conversations. Did that go the way we're supposed to? And we create a lot of mental stress on ourselves.
Yes.
And that right there just bogs us down and keeps us from moving forward. All the overthinking. And some of it I know is things we've learned, some of it may be just a habit that there's so many reasons on why somebody overthinks. But even if we take it into wellness and overthinking, well, I'm not doing this correctly. This isn't the right way to do it. Or, oh, I'm not eating the right way. Or, oh, this is bad. Like, there's so many hard and harsh words we use on ourselves when it comes to our wellness journey. So let's kind of migrate into there a little bit when it comes into that mental clutter and just how we talk to ourselves when it comes to our wellness journey and when we start to feel stuck and discouraged. How can we change that? Not like reframe that, make us feel empowered about it rather than I'm not doing it right. I might as well not even do it.
First of all, stop trying to do everything all at once. Pick one thing and hone in on that. Maybe it's you want to drink more water. Okay. So, like James Clear says in Atomic Habits, make it easy. Get yourself a water bottle that doesn't weigh 700 pounds. Carry it with you everywhere.
Yep.
And that is your go-to. You know, when I started drinking water, it's like if I didn't have, and I've got a big one because I'm doing 75 hard right now, but if I didn't have
Nice.
this with me, then I'm not drinking water. And I got to drink the water because it's the one thing I'm really focusing on. Every decision you make dictates the life you lead. So it's the next decision and the next decision and the next one decision is not going to completely derail you. So when you hear yourself beating yourself up or ruminating, I'm going to go back to breath because this is the greatest hack I've ever heard. And it has to do with your brain and neurology. The brain is incapable of carrying two thoughts forward at the same time. So when you begin to go down the rabbit hole and you're like, oh, I did this and now I'm not going to be there. Then I've got this wedding and it's not going to, the dress isn't going to fit me. And you're spiraling, or you're thinking about a conversation you had with your spouse, or you're thinking about a teacher email that came in and what you're going to have to do with your kid. Whatever it is, we all know when we go down the rabbit hole and we keep adding
Yes.
to the thought and it really gets bad. We can begin to narrate our breath.
Mm.
Literally, you start going, I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out, I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out. And you do that 5 to 7 times, 5 to 7 times. It might sound like this. I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out, I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out, depending on what you're ruminating about. But what that does is it stops that other thought. That other thought runs into a brick wall when you begin narrating your breath. It helps if you can do it out loud. I often ruminate in the car.
Mm.
So it's easy for me by myself to narrate my breath. But you watch, test it out,
Love
and
that.
see what happens. I've also done this in the middle of the night when you wake up and the lists start going and you think about what you got to do the minute your feet hit the ground, start narrating your breath. And if your partner is a light sleeper, you can do it in your head. It still works. But it's shifting that focus. This has nothing to do with multitasking.
Mm.
We can multitask, great. This has to do with rumination and these thoughts that end up doing us no good. And when we stop the ruminating, we feel worse, and we're talking even more negatively about ourselves. But that narration of breath 5 to 7 times, it works every time. And if for some reason the rumination begins again, start narrating your breath. I've only ever had to do that pattern twice.
I love that. And
Yeah.
okay, so I think that's a phenomenal tip, especially because those lists that go on and on in the middle of the night, I always tell my clients to keep a notebook and a pencil next to their bed because if it's out of your mind, you know you won't forget it. So I
Right.
tell people like get it written down, stop thinking about it and wait, oh, I only have 3 more hours that I have to remember this. No, write it down and be done with it. And if we don't have to look at our phones, the better, because then
Yes.
we disrupt. So like write it down, get that pen and paper, a brain dump before bed, but that
Perfect.
breathing to help stop that. Okay, so we've got that. I would love to know your thoughts on daily wins. So have you read the book The Gap in the Gain?
No, the gap in the game. I've got to
Okay,
write that down. I
by
will.
Dan Sullivan. It is phenomenal.
I know Dan Sullivan. I do love him. So I don't know why I
So
haven't. Yeah.
the whole premise of the book is we are so worried about where we start, where we are, and still how far we have to go. Kind of like on a road trip.
Huh.
We got 10 more hours. Okay, we have 8 more hours. Okay, we still have 6 more hours. Like instead of saying, oh, we've already done 4 hours.
Yes.
We just got done doing 6 hours, looking back at our accomplishments.
Hmm.
So the book's really great because I did learn it comes with a workbook. I haven't done the workbook, but in the book, there's exercises. And he mentions daily wins of no matter how big or how small it is, write down 3 wins at the end of your day, because that's where we really start to see progress is, hey, I drank my water. My win has been my water the last week. It isn't the scale, it isn't the measurements. It's those changes physically, mentally, and emotionally that we see. So, do you have any tips or strategies kind of around or exercises around that concept that you recommend people doing to help start seeing those good and positive things at the end of their day or at the end of their week?
I mean, look, the more we talk about it, the more now I'm realizing why I had kids. It's so great because kids are so great to do this with. Make it easy. Start with your kids. Say, let's hear what's the best thing that happened to you today. I used to ask my babies when they were little, I'd say, what did you do that was kind, loving, or gentle today? They knew that question was going to come every time I picked them up. And when we begin to create a culture in our homes where we celebrate the wins, this whole thing about people being humble and not talking about their successes, we got to get over this because we've got to practice celebrating. It's important because this adds to exhaustion. When we have a win, we have an emotion. Emotions have energy. And if we don't share it, that energy just gets stuffed in us. And whether it's good or bad, energy has to come out some way. And so we could start to get back pain because we're feeling like we're not being supported. Well, why not? Well, you don't tell anybody what you did. Share your stuff. Start small and do this with yourself. So begin in your journal or your calendar or, take a look at what you've accomplished and kiss your brain. There was one time when I was observing teachers, because I used to be an instructor in special education at Michigan State University. And I observed a kindergarten intern asking her kids a question, and they all answered together. And she said, "Oh, you did that so beautifully. Let's kiss our brains." And they all, they kissed their hand and tapped their head, all in unit, like little synchronized swimmers. And I thought that was so beautiful because so often we're hitting ourselves on the head. We're smack. I mean, look at the emojis you use. How many of you use that forehead slap all the time? If you're using that forehead slap, I'm telling you, this is one way you can change your life is to change your emojis. And I can't even believe that's a thing, but it is. If you move those ugly emojis, the ones that the self-deprecating things out of the way you communicate, that's going to shift for you. So you start with yourself and then you do it with your partner, you do it with your kids, you do it with your best friends and say, hey, could we just for this week, when we text each other, let's start off with something that we did or accomplished that we're proud of, that help us, and it's a safe space to do it in. Because like with anything, when we begin to shift our language around the way we move through the day, it will become a new habit. And it will come easier. It will roll off your tongue. Hey, you want to hear what I did today? When I walked the Camino and when I climbed Machu Picchu, both times, the best advice I got was stop, turn around, and look at how far you've come. And especially when I was in Peru. Are you kidding me? I was immersed in all those mountains. And I'm like, I went over that. And it was so unbelievably gratifying. And I was so proud of my body. That was the hardest physical thing I've ever done in my life. And you deserve to give yourself some accolades, to give yourself some love, because how often are you doing the exact opposite?
Yeah, I love that. And it's the turning around, it's the looking back and not looking back as comparing yourself against a previous version of yourself. Because we do get caught in that. I work with a lot of women of, oh, I'm not that size anymore. I'm not this way. And we're grown. We are growing. We are building. We are changing who we are. We're never supposed to be the people we were when we were 18. We were never supposed to be the people we were pre-kids because our life has changed. If we didn't want our life to change, we wouldn't have done these steps to make it change. But it's hard because we have these feelings because we all look back at a photo and we're like, wow, I was so fat then. And we look back and we're like, oh, why did I call myself that? And with just the self-talk that we have, and when we look back, looking back as gratitude and looking back as the gain of all this knowledge, all this language, all of these things in life we've gained is what we need to remember instead of, oh, I'm not that anymore.
You just look at the gain of the weight. Yeah, you're here, you're alive. Woohoo! We've survived the pandemic. You're still alive.
Hmm.
How many of you know people who have long COVID? God
Hmm.
love them. Very healthy people, and now in and out of urgent care on, fevers, can't breathe. We have got to be grateful for
Hmm.
everything. And I have a mantra that I give to every client, every group that I do. And this came from a trainer I worked with after my second kid. And so she's now 24. So I've had this over 20 years. And it reads, I should have this memorized, right? Because I say it every day, but my current body, so I'm going to say that my current body is the most precious gift I have ever been given. I am very grateful for it and will accept, respect, and love it 100% each day. Now, if you want that mantra, get in touch with me. I'll send it to you. But it's also on the board here.
I love that. So as we talk about that mantra, I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna put that. A lot of people write it on a mirror. Put things that are gonna remind you, like you said, smile, to relax your shoulders, things that you want to remember to do during the day. Put it on sticky notes. I had a girlfriend growing up that had sticky notes all over her car of things that she needed to make sure she did before she drove because it was just like it's processes, it's reminding and not having to keep it in our brain. So, as we kind of wrap up, I would love to know some of like your last thoughts, things that people should take with them when they leave. And then when you are ready, share the best way for people to get in contact with you. I know we'll add your information to the show notes, but then you can kind of move into that area as well.
My goal is to leave the world better than I found it. And in order to accomplish that, I have to be in it. Are you in your life? Are you an active participant in your life? Are you meeting your day-to-day challenges with your arms in front of you like, no, not more. I can't, I won't, I don't. I encourage you all to live with your arms wide open, all of it, because I believe that life has our back, that we are meant to be happy and in love, either with ourselves or with somebody else. And when we avoid our lives and we complain about our current situations, that's what we're putting out there. And it will keep coming back until you have a different perspective on it. And so, my number one strategy is to keep showing up. You figure out what gets you out of bed. And I really hope that it's you. Start making the reason you get up you, and take that time, slow down, recognize your breath, and make sure that you have a beloved friend. That could be a sibling, a neighbor, someone you've grown up with your whole life. You need someone in your life who's trusted and who you can share things with, because it is not helping us when we keep it all to ourselves. Our brains can be dangerous neighborhoods that we navigate alone, and we've got to get things out. So open up, get out into nature, keep showing up, and take time for yourself, because you are the most important person in your life.
I love it. So, you heard it here. Start putting yourself first. Even those 5 minutes, like Start with just 5 minutes every day and you can build up on it. We mentioned some really good books today. I'll make sure to link all of them in the show notes so that you can go and you can purchase. Hoopla is a really great one. I assume a lot of these are on Hoopla. I just started reading a book called Mental Fitness that was written through COVID, which was kind of interesting on mindset. So I'll give you guys more updates as that goes on, but Hoopla is a free, you just need your library card. So any of these books, if you're hesitant to read, try a free source, see if you can get it there, check out your local library. And Regina, I've loved having you on today. We've had some awesome conversation. I would love to know, how can people get in contact with you, ask you more questions, and that type of stuff, because I know they're going to show up. And anything you mentioned will be in the show notes for everybody listening. You don't have to write down an email address right now. I will make sure to put it in there.
Well, this is really easy. Go to Queen of Action. That's who I am. I am the Queen of Action, queenofaction.com or at Coach Me Carey. That's my last name. My business is Carry On. And we all need help moving forward. And so one way is to sign up for my Monday messages. I come at you every week with some positivity and some tips and a thoughtful question to think about during the week. I'm also on WILX Studio 10 every month for Motivational Monday, so you can catch me on there with Nicole and Rochelle. And I'm on LinkedIn. So if you've got a LinkedIn presence, look for Regina Carey and please send me a connection request.
Awesome. And any of the things she mentioned today that you want her mantra or those 10 ways to say no, was that
Oh, there's more. Yeah, there's more than
yes.
10, but yes.
The ways to say no. If you want any of that, I'm going to be asking her for those because I think they're really good. And the last little tip that I always like to give is all these episodes are impactful. There's a ton of things that you could go and implement. Don't try to do it all. Pick that one thing that you listened to today, just one, and start there. Once you kind of feel accomplished with that, then you can add another one. Don't get overwhelmed. It's meant to give you some options because we are all in different places. So, with that, thank you everyone for tuning in. Regina, thank you again so much for being here. We will see you all or hear you all next time. Talk to you soon. Thank you for tuning in to the EmpowerHer Wellness podcast. I hope you found today's episode inspiring and packed with actionable tips. Remember, your journey to becoming the strongest, most confident version of yourself is just beginning. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode and join our community of empowered women. Until next time, stay strong and stay confident.